All right, welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course, and we are pleased to be joined by Cason Crane.
Yes, hello.
Hello. People may not know who this is. Of course, Cason is the first LGBTQ person to climb the 7 summits, including Mount Everest. How's it going, man?
It's going great. And I would just clarify, first, openly LGBTQ. I would guess that there probably were some folks before me who just weren't out. And I think that's important to mention just because representation matters so much in sports and in in the outdoors world. And it's great, I think, from my perspective. I was climbing the 7 summits now 8 years ago, but increasingly we're seeing more and more people come out and be vocal and open about their sexuality, which is great, especially for the young kids who might feel like they don't have enough role models or examples in the sports that they're passionate about.
Right. So kind of gonna go in and talk about how you kind of got into climbing.
So climbing, I'd come from a family that was very outdoorsy. We always hiked a lot. We're the sort of family that, where you see those, you see those memes online where it's like, oh, what's worse than hell, marrying into a family where they run a 5K on Thanksgiving. We're like that family, but even crazier. We would do 5Ks and other sorts of races every weekend as a family. That was like the sort of bonding activity that we would do, hikes, races, all sorts of things like that. So I grew up in this in this sort of crazy family. And for me, mountaineering, I was first exposed to it in my teens. My mother and I went out and did some mountaineering together, and I was immediately hooked because it combined the incredible, this incredible opportunity to be outdoors and to be basically hiking with the added benefit of having a goal to push towards and an incredible experience of reaching the summit. It just really resonated with me. And so as soon as I finished high school, I was like, how can I do more? How can I do more climbing? How can I climb bigger mountains and bigger and bigger and bigger mountains? And I wanted to do that in a way that would also give back and would stand for something more than just my own personal benefit. To me, that was too self-centered, to be honest. Like I really wanted to use this and have some sort of impact. And so I did climb the 7 summits in support of an organization called the Trevor Project, which is a suicide lifeline for the LGBTQ community, and it does really incredible life-saving work.
So a lot of people have heard of the Trevor Project. If you follow my NASCAR coverage, NASCAR has just recently partnered with them to support the organizations like that. Of course, many other sports leagues and that. So kind of talk about like what your partnership is, with them, and how have you kind of helped them get their message across there?
So the partnership, it's funny, actually, my personal partnership with the Trevor Project started when I was still in high school, because not only was I an openly gay young teenager in high school, but also I did lose a friend to suicide when I was a junior in high school. And it really profoundly affected me because at the time it was actually the closest loss I had had. I'd been very lucky to not lose any close family members. And it really shook me to my core, to be honest. The idea that a young person, a bright, cheery, fun-loving, smart, beautiful young person would decide to take her or his own life. And so that was when I first got acquainted with the Trevor Project. And I immediately called them up. I was like, I want to start volunteering. Like I felt like I needed a way to channel this grief into something productive. And they were like, this is great, but Cason, you're 17 years old. Like, unfortunately, like we can't actually, there's only a certain subset of the volunteering that you can do because a lot of the work they do is very sensitive, and you need to be an adult to actually engage with on the lifeline and work on the lifeline, etc. So I did get engaged. I started writing at the time. There were we would write letters back to people. People would feel sort of low tech nowadays, but 10 years ago, people would write letters in and we would respond to them individually, personalized responses. So that's how I got engaged at first with the Trevor Project. And then with the climbing, I sort of compared it to running a marathon for cancer research or things of that sort, where I was using this athletic endeavor as a platform to draw awareness to the Trevor Project, because awareness is honestly half the battle, both for young people to know that it exists as a resource for them, and also for older people who can be that support system, who can be that mentor, who can be that accepting figure in a young LGBT person's life, that they would know of the resource so that they can direct someone to that resource in times of crisis. So that's one piece of it. And the other piece was fundraising. So I was raising money through the Seven Summits period. That was as hard, if not harder, than the actual climbs themselves. And I ended up raising over $135,000 for the Trevor Project. And even in the 8 years since then, I have continued to be an advocate for the Trevor Project, to speak to young kids and to speak, whenever given the opportunity, and raise awareness for the incredible resources they provide and the challenges that face LGBTQ youth. Yeah.
So kind of go into, I know you're also, in a business. I think you own a coffee shop, you were telling me before.
I run a coffee company. It's an e-commerce business, so we do ship nationwide for free. It's a cold brew concentrate that is super concentrated, so it allows you to make it any way you want, and it comes in 4 caffeine levels, so that you no longer have to be constrained to just whatever caffeine you're getting and whatever cold brew or coffee you're drinking. You can actually customize it how you want. So yeah, it's called Explore Cold Brew. Which is that's my latest project, and so definitely check us out, explorecoldbrew.com.
Yeah. So, kind of going in, what was it like, climbing like the seven summits? Like what for someone that all like, there's a lot of people that want like to do like big goals in their life.
Yeah.
What was that like for you just to climb up there?
For me, honestly, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. I was very cognizant from my very first steps that this was an opportunity that most people, even ones who would love to pursue that opportunity, they might never have the chance to do it. And so it was very, very special to me. And I was and am incredibly grateful that I had the privilege and opportunity to pursue them. More tactically, it was a lot of time in a tent over about a 1.5 year long period, where I think I spent over a third of the year in a tent on a mountain, because I was climbing the 7 summits in a pretty short time frame. It's very hard to do them in less than a year, and I was doing it in just over a year. And it was incredible. I think every day, every mountain that I climbed further reinforced that the act of climbing was itself a great parallel to the challenges that LGBTQ and even straight folks face when they're growing up. High school, middle school is hard. High school's hard, and there are these moments in any kid's life when he or she is, I'm sure, feels overwhelmed or incredibly daunted by the challenges, and that whether it's bullying or whether it's school or whether it's home stuff and life at home, like there are these seemingly insurmountable challenges, and climbing gave me a real life like framework for really breaking down seemingly impossible challenges into smaller bite-sized chunks in a way that I've since tried to relate and adopt in my everyday life.
So, I know that there's been a lot of experiences and a lot of people as America's become more, sensitive towards a lot of these things. What has that been like, for you to see a lot of people maybe more accepting of you
I
guys?
love it. I'm so happy. And I just hope that, folks recognize that we still have a ways to go, and that we're not at a point yet where, to be honest, like for me, the bar is, we should have 0 LGBT kids or kids of any sexuality killing themselves, right? That should be, until we get to 0 on that, there's still work to be done, but we should also celebrate the successes and the progress that we've made. And I think a big part of that is people being, people at times ask me when I was climbing, why do you even mention that you're gay? Like, why does it matter? Like, it's not a disability. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's absolutely not a disability at all. In fact, like, I view my being gay as an asset that helped me to do better as a climber. So it's not at all a handicap or anything. It's about representation. And I mentioned this, a few minutes ago, but it's about the kids that I would speak with who maybe came from less accepting or less progressive communities than I grew up in, for whom seeing an openly gay mountaineer, an openly gay athlete, was honestly eye-opening for them. And to the extent we can have more and more outspoken representation across the world of sports and athletics, I think that's amazing, and will only help us as a society to make it so that coming out isn't a big deal for anyone, and that it's not something that's even celebrated because it's so normal and accepted. That's the goal I think we need to get to. But there's a lot of sports where there still are no openly gay active players. The NFL is one of them. Right now, there are no openly gay active NFL players.
Right. Yeah, because we've seen the NFL, the NBA. As I mentioned, NASCAR is supporting the Trevor Project as well. Um, so yeah, I mean, what can these leagues do to maybe be more maybe more inclusive in that way?
That's a great question. And I think, to be honest, I'd say the number one thing that could help would be uh, athletes in these sports who are gay, because there are LGBT folks
Yeah.
competing in these sports. Just looking at the numbers, that there are, having them take the leap and have the courage, because I know it's hard, and it's hard for them, and they're in the spotlight, but to have the courage to come out, and by doing so, then these leagues can really prove themselves and prove how accepting and how much they are willing to embrace these athletes in their sports. I think that's really where the leagues should come into play. And there are other things that are, I think, that are great that I've been seeing. I've been seeing a lot of pride nights I've seen several baseball teams do pride nights. I think there's some NHL ones I've seen as well. I mean, those are sorts of things that I think are great gestures to demonstrate the inclusivity of the league and of specific teams and folks. But I would say right now the most urgent priority, if I had to pick one, would be having, encouraging those gay or those LGBT athletes to take that leap, and then the burden goes on the league and their teams to rally behind them. And I'm very encouraged because I think we're going to see more of that in the coming months. And I'm very optimistic that it'll be awesome to see the league support these folks, as I'm sure and I hope and believe they will, and also the fans. I mean, because the reality, I think, is there is a fear, at least from some of the athletes I know who are not yet out, that they might not be that their coming out might actually be very disadvantageous because of their fan base. And these are people, again, who are in the spotlight. They get hate mail already, and it's like, do you really want to put yourself out there in a way that, allows more people to pile on or to send you hate mail or death threats? I mean, even when I was climbing, I got death threats and I didn't even have a massive online presence or anything, and so it's a legitimate fear. And so I just want to reiterate that it takes a lot of courage to take that step, and I would just say I hope that those folks take that brave step, and that'll be an amazing. I think it'll help us move further towards the progress that we all see happening.
All right. Well, Cason, thanks for spending a few minutes with me, and thank you so much for coming on, and congrats on all your successes.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.